I am making an Odd Eyes deck profile. I made this deck for fun, so it won't at all be competitive. But in a format where hand traps and control doesn't exist, where the games are actually back to back, I'm gonna smack you, and now you smack me, things like that. This is actually a really fun and entertaining deck to play, and it can technically go first, but with my experience with the deck, it wants to go second, just because of Odd Eyes. That's all it has to be said as Odd Eyes. Moving on with the profile and me trying to be funny, which doesn't happen at all. I play one copy of Odd Eyes, or Performer Pal Odd Eyes Synchron. This card is what happens when Konami goes, what archetypes can we mix into a deck that can use all summoning methods? This. And thus, Performer Pal Odd Eyes Synchron was born by combining the Performer Pal Odd Eyes and Synchron archetypes. But Performer Pal Odd Eyes Synchron, you never scale it. Ever. You don't want it in scale because it's a scale 6. You want scale 8s. So, this deck's Pendulum ability is completely irrelevant. However, if it's Pendulum summoned from the extra deck, is used for a synchro material, banish it. When it's normal summoned, you can target one level 3 or lower Performer Pal Odd Eyes monster in your graveyard to press summon it, but its effects are negated. Once per turn, you can target one card in your Pendulum zone, special summon it, but it has its effects negated, if any, and then immediately after it effect resolves, synchro summon one synchro monster using only that monster and this card. This is meant to be used with Odd Eyes Persona Dragon, because level 2 plus level 5 makes an Odd Eyes Meteorverse Dragon, which can summon the other Pendulum scale. You can only use each effect once per turn, or as I think. Oh no, its effect to Synchro Summon isn't once per turn. One Odd Eyes Mirage Dragon. This card honestly is just in here for the summoning of Nirvana High Paladin. Because as long as you Pendulum Summon Eyes Mirage Dragon, it can be treated as a tuner monster for your level 7 Synchro and your non-tuner and non-tuner Synchro. Then, moving on, I guess technically you can use Mirage Dragon for a defensive play because once per turn an Odd Eyes you control and it can't be destroyed by battle or card effects. 3 Persona Dragon. It has the effect on the Pendulum scale during the end phase of your opponent. Activate a card or effect that target one Odd Eyes Pendulum monster you control. No other cards while in your Pendulum zone. You special summon this card, and if you do, place one face-up Odd Eyes Pendulum monster from your extra deck in your Pendulum zone, except Persona Dragon. But you don't care for that. The main effect you care for is it can target a monster summoned from the extra deck your opponent controls, negate its effects until the end of the turn. That's it. But I just like it because it's a scale 1, so you can actually Pendulum summon any of your monsters. Or all your level monsters. Then I play one copy of Performer Pal Odd Eyes Dissolver. Odd Eyes Dissolver is basically Odd Eyes Synchron, except for fusion summoning. Again, you never scale it because scale 4 is bad. Although it's not as bad as scale 6. Anyway, at the start of the damage step, if a Pendulum monster battles an opponent's monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. If you do, your monster cannot be destroyed by battle. You can only use this effect dissolve once per turn. During your main phase, you can fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck. Using this monster, you control one card in your Pendulum zone. So essentially, you can use this to Pendulum summon with a monster in your Pendulum zone. That's about it. Then I play 2 copies of Shion K Magician. Shion K's monster ability hardly ever comes up, but once per turn, your player's turn, you can target a light monster on the field and get that face-up monster's effects to the end of this turn. What you mostly use it for is its Pendulum Scale effect, where you can target an Xyz monster you control. This turn, you can use it as an Xyz or for an Xyz summon by treating its rank as a level. So you can take your rank 7 monster and treat it as a level 7 monster. So you can summon Odd Eyes Raging Dragon with its full effects. Then I play 3 copies of Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon. Any battle damage inflicts to your opponent through battling a monster is doubled. And during the end phase, during your end phase, if it's in your pendulum scale, you can destroy it, and if you do, add a 1500 attack or lower pendulum monster from your deck to your hand. This is only in here because you kind of had to play Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon for some of your effects. Then I play 2 copies of Odd Eyes Phantom Dragon. Phantom Dragon, you never use its pendulum effect because it's always being summoned to the monster zone. Because if it deals battle damage to your opponent, then it checks your pendulum zones, and for each Odd Eyes in your pendulum zone, it burns your opponent for 1200. So if you smack your opponent directly with this and you have 2 Odd Eyes in your pendulum scales, this basically does 4900 points of damage, but only just by dealing damage. It deals 25 by its own effect and then burns your opponent for 24. Then I play 3 copies of Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon. Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon is a normal monster, surprisingly. But its pendulum effect is if an Odd Eyes card you control is destroyed by a battle or card effect, special summon 1 Odd Eyes monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard. You can only use this effective Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon once per turn. Arc Pendulum Dragon is actually kind of stupid once you start establishing a board, because Fusion Summon Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon, it dies. Oh no, bring back Arc Pendulum, or bring back your Vortex Dragon from grave. Guess who's back? That's all I say about that. Then, just in case I have to go first, 3 copies of Mist Valley Apex Avian. Target 1 Mist Valley monster in your field, return it to your hand, and if you do, negate your opponent's card or effect. Avian is a once per chain effect. A soft once per chain. This is the reason I've actually thought about trying to main Mist Valley Thunderbirds. Because it's once per chain, if you have a Thunderbird with this, as long as your opponent doesn't negate your Avian with something like Impermanence, you can return Avian to your hand, negate their card, summon back Avian. You can target Thunderbird, negate their card, Thunderbird's effect summon itself back, so you can just keep looping Thunderbird to your hand to negate with Avian. I've actually thought about doing that. So, because if you have Avian and Thunderbird, you essentially have an infinite negate loop. Anyway, back to Odd Eyes. I play 1 copy of Odd Eyes Gravity Dragon. Odd Eyes Gravity Dragon can be ritual summoned with Odd Eyes Advent. When it's special summoned, you can return all spell and trap cards your opponent controls to their hand, which means this can be summoned off of Arc Pendulum Dragon after it's been properly ritual summoned first. But my favorite part about this card is your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to its effect activation, so it's a giant trinity your opponent can't respond to, as well as this effect of your opponent must pay 500 life points to activate card effects. So if you make this first, something like Dragon Link's in trouble. Because I'm pretty sure they do more, or that they use more than 16 card effects per turn to make their standard boards. And this is not an effect activation either. It's just a thing that happens. So Odd Eyes that are playing their own version of Red Eyes Flare Metal. What's hilarious is when you have this with Flare Metal, so your opponent basically gets burned for 500 and had to pay 500 to activate card effects. So it basically only... This deck can do stupid things, is what I'm getting at. Then I play the 1 copy of Odd Eyes Lancer Dragon. This card is only ever being summoned by the effect of Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon. But if an Odd Eyes card or cards you control be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can destroy 1 Odd Eyes card in your hand, monster zone, or pendulum zone instead. So if your opponent tries to Geki you or Dark Hole you, you can technically have your Odd Eyes Lancer Dragon destroy itself instead. And if you have Arc Pendulum Dragon in play, well, Lancer comes right back. That's why I like Odd Eyes, because when your opponent doesn't know what's going on, you can just take advantage of that. Then I play 2 copies of Odd Eyes Phantasm Dragon, or Phantasma, not Phantasm. It has the effect in your pendulum scale of you can discard 1 card to add 1 face-up dragon pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand. You can only use effective Odd Eyes Phantasma Dragon once per turn. And then its monster effect, even though it is a level 8. So if you're summoning this, it's either because you're tribute summoning it, or you're summoning off of its own effect, which I do not recommend unless you're desperate, which I get to be every once in a while. But if you have 2 cards in your pendulum zones and a face-up Odd Eyes monster in your extra deck, an Odd Eyes pendulum monster in your extra deck, you can special summon from your hand. However, you cannot pendulum summon the turn you activate its effect. During damage calculation, if this card attacks an opponent's monster, you can make your opponent's monster lose 1,000 attack for each face-up pendulum monster in your extra deck. During damage calculation only. You can only use this effect of Odd Eyes Phantasma Dragon once per turn. So this card can actually be used to beat over things that are really big, like if you bait out a Dragoon Negate, you can actually use this to weaken the Dragoon by at least 2,000. And just beat over it. Then to finish off the monsters, I play 3 copies of Odd Eyes Revolution Dragon. Odd Eyes Revolution Dragon has the effect you cannot pendulum summon monsters except dragon monsters. That effect can't be negated. You can target 1 Dragon Fusion, Synchro, or Xyz monster in your graveyard, destroy this card, and if you do, special summon that target. But it also has the monster effect that everyone's aware of you can pay 500 life points and discard this card. If you do, add 1 level 8 or lower Dragon Pendulum monster from your deck to your hand. Because of that effect, I have actually thought about playing 1 copy of Chaos Emperor, the Dragon of Armageddon. It's the rest of its effects. Cannot be normal summoner set. Must be pendulums summoned from your hand or be special summoned from your hand by attributing 3 dragon monsters, 1 fusion, 1 synchro, and 1 Xyz. You can discard, and then once per turn you can pay half your life points. Shuffle all other cards on the field and the graveyards into the deck. Oh yeah, and its attack and defense is equal to your opponent's life points. Or half your opponent's life points. So starting off, it's 4,000. Towards the end of the game, it's a lot weaker. That's it for the monsters. Moving on to the spells, I play 1 copy of Terraforming to search for... Holy crap, the sun's coming out now. 1 copy of Terraforming to search for your Odd Eyes... I forgot the name of the card. Your Sky Iris, which I'll get to later. Then I play 1 copy of Miracle Synchro Fusion. This card's literally in here before Anaconda to summon Zark. Then I play 1 copy of Odd Eyes Advent, just so I can summon Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon. Pendulum Paradox to get Pendulum monsters back from the extra deck. 2 copies of Spiral Flame Strike. You can activate it more than one, or when it's activated, you activate 1 or 2 effects, where if you control an Odd Eyes card, target card on the field, destroy it. Or you can add 1 level 7 Odd Eyes monster from your deck to your hand, or 1 face-up level 7 Odd Eyes Pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand. Then I play 2 copies of Duelist Alliance. If you have a card in your Pendulum zone, search for a card from your deck that has Pendulum in its name, and you can only activate 1 Duelist Alliance per turn. Then I play 3 copies of Sky Iris. While Sky Iris is in play, your opponent cannot, or a Magician, Performer Pal, and Odd Eyes cards in your Pendulum zones cannot be targeted by opponent's card effects. You can target 1 other face-up card you control, destroy it, and if you do, add 1 Odd Eyes card from your deck to your hand. You can only use the Sky Iris once per turn. Sky Iris can be used in conjunction with Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon, which is dumb. Arc Pendulum is dumb, that's all I'm getting at. This deck works because of Arc Pendulum Dragon. If Arc Pendulum Dragon didn't exist, this deck wouldn't work. Then I play 3 copies of Odd Eyes Fusion. It's a normal fusion card for dragons. However, if you have no monsters and your opponent has at least 2 monsters, you can also fusion summon using Odd Eyes monsters, 2 monsters from your extra deck. So, your opponent has 2 monsters, you have none, you activate this, and you can use a synchro and a pendulum from your extra deck. Summon Eyes Vortex Dragon. And what do you know? Now you have 3 of the 4 materials for Zark. That's why I like this card so much, because it's an easy way to Zark. But that is it for the main deck. Moving on to the extra deck. Also, at this point, sorry about the pauses. I am trying to be funny, and per usual, it's not working. Starting with the extra deck, I play 1 copy of Predaplant Green Anaconda. The reason Anaconda's not here at the moment is because one of my friends is using it, so I don't have access to it at the moment. But Anaconda, the only effect I ever use is pay 2,000 life points, send a fusion card from your deck to the grave for a cost. At this point, you usually get the permanents because everyone's thinking Dragoon. But then you get to activate that card's fusion effect. So what you do is you actually auto fusion, summon Vortex Dragon, normal summon a Pendulum monster. Oh wait, I realize what I was thinking of won't work because the Pendulum monster does the extract after it leaves the field. But essentially, you use this while you have all the resources together to summon Zark, send Miracle Synchro Fusion, and then you summon Zark and just watch your opponent cry because they don't know how to stop it. This deck is bullying when your opponent has no idea what they're doing. Then I play 2 copies of Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon. Absolute Dragon has the effect of up to twice per turn. When an attack is declared, you can use 1 material and they get the attack, and if you do, you can summon 1 Odd Eyes monster from your hand or graveyard. And then if this XD summoned card leaves the field, special summon 1 Odd Eyes monster from your extra deck. Then I play 2 copies of Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon. This is literally just in here for Miracle Synchro Fusion pendulums. 1 copy of Odd Eyes Raging Dragon. Odd Eyes Raging Dragon has the effect of, if you can pendulum summon level 7, you can pendulum summon this face-up card in your extra deck. If this card is in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place it in your pendulum zone. If this card is XD summoned using XD's monster's material against this effect, it can make a second attack during each battle phase. Once per turn, you can use 1 material from this card, you can detach 1 XD's material from this card, destroy as many cards your opponent controls as possible, and if you do, this card gains 200 attack for each until the end of this turn. So if your opponent has at least 5 cards on their field, it has 4,000 attack points. Guess what can attack twice? Raging Dragon. 8,000 damage. And most of the time, your opponent can't stop attacks after they get board wiped. I like this deck so much just because it's a bunch of big dragons for no reason. Then moving on to the extra deck, I play 2 copies of Odd Eyes Meteor Burst Dragon. Meteor Burst Dragon has the effect of, if it's special summon, you can target 1 card in your pendulum zone, special summon it. Also, this card cannot attack for the rest of the turn. You can only use its effect of Odd Eyes Meteor Burst Dragon once per turn. Monsters in your opponent's possession cannot activate their effects during the battle phase. Which is actually really funny when your opponent's trying to do a battle phase effect. Like Gladiator Beast, for example. Just gonna point that out. And to finish off with synchros, I play 1 copy of Nirvana High Paladin. Nirvana High Paladin will hardly ever be in the Pendulum Zone, so just ignore that effect. For this card, Synchro Summon, you can treat 1 Pendulum Summoned Pendulum monster you control as a tuner. If this card is Synchro Summoned using a Pendulum Summoned Pendulum tuner, you can target 1 card in your graveyard, add it to your hand. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, have your opponent's life points. And if it's destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can place it in your Pendulum Zone. I just like this because you can get back things like Monster Reborn or Regeki for no reason by summoning it. Then moving on to the fusions, I play 3 copies of Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon. Vortex Dragon is a generic negate by putting an extra deck monster from your extra deck back into the deck. And if it's special summoned, then you can target 1 attack position monster your opponent controls, return it to the hand. You can only use each effect of Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon once per turn. Then I play 1 copy of Gatling Ghoul. Gatling Ghoul has the effect of when it's fusion summoned, you can burn your opponent for, I believe it's 200. Yeah, it's 200 points of damage for every card on the field. And then if it was fusion summoned using a Pendulum monster's material, destroy one monster your opponent controls, and if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's original attack. So Gatling Ghoul is in here just for massive burn damage for no apparent reason. So if you're in time and you're in your main phase, you can summon Gatling Ghoul, burn your opponent for a lot, and make them cry because time rules are a pain. Then I play one copy of Ruinized Pendulum Dragon. Ruinized Pendulum Dragon, if it was fusion summoned using Pendulum Summon monsters, then your opponent, or it's unaffected by opponent's card effects till the end of the turn. But if you fusion summon it using a level 4 or lower, it gets 2 attacks during each battle phase, or 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase. But if you use level 5 or higher, it gets 3 attacks on monsters during each battle phase. So I just like it because it's a multiple attack thing that I just think is cute for if you don't need to summon Gatling Ghoul. And of course, to finish off my Odd Eyes deck, I can't play a Pendulum Dragon deck without playing Zark. Zark cannot be Pendulum summoned. It can only be fusion summoned. But when it's fusion summoned, you can destroy all cards your opponent controls. It cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects. Then if it destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can summon one Supreme King Dragon monster from your deck, hand, extra deck, or graveyard. It's really fun to do for no apparent reason. So I really like Zark just because Zark. But it also has the effect of when it's destroyed, you can place it in your Pendulum Zone. And if Zark gets in your Pendulum Zone and your opponent's using a Synchro, Fusion, or Xyz based deck, they're in trouble. Because Zark's Pendulum effect reads, negate the activated effects of your opponent's Fusion, Synchro, and Xyz monsters. As well as once per turn, if your opponent adds a card or cards from their deck to their hand, you can destroy that card or cards. So example, your opponent has no hand, no field, and a top deck Pot of Desires. They banish 10 cards, draw 2. Now you get to destroy those 2 cards with Zark's effect because they added cards from their deck to their hand. But that hardly ever happens because in order for that to work, Zark has to first be destroyed. And Zark being 4,000 is being destroyed is not easy. But that is it for my Odd Eyes deck profile. If there are any deck profiles you would like me to make, have any ideas how I can improve my Odd Eyes deck, or have any ideas for games you would like to see between me and my brother, or me and one of my other friends, feel free to comment below. Thanks for watching.